It's certainly possible. Events sometimes spiral and have a decision matrix of their own. Many of the people who were key advisors to the supreme leader in Iran are dead now. And so he's listening to some different people as well. But that's really a decision for only one person, the supreme leader Khomeini in Iran. If he does so, it will be a massively escalatory move and something that has the potential of bringing the United States into the war. Attacks on Americans, attacks on regional energy infrastructure, closing the Straits of Hormuz. These are all the kinds of escalatory actions that one can imagine Iran taking and could lead us into a very, very different and dangerous future. It should have thought about the aftermath of the action. A rational decision from Iran would be to engage in negotiations with President Trump about the nuclear program, negotiations that President Trump has been desperate to engage in. But unfortunately, the most recent decision they've made is to cancel the latest meetings that were scheduled for tomorrow. That would be the rational decision and the wise decision for Tehran to make. Unfortunately, we've seen them make a number of irrational or at least unwise decisions. It was unwise for Hezbollah to engage in the war and has led to the destruction not just of Hezbollah, but the loss of the Iranian proxy regime, partner regime in Syria as well. It was unwise for Iran to completely break through the red line and attack Israel directly. But they did it not just once, but they did it twice last year. So they've made a series of unwise decisions recently. Hopefully they don't continue that process and make more unwise decisions in the heat of this incredibly dangerous moment. Yeah, the real answer is we don't know. I think the best estimate, my best estimate, is that President Trump did not give a green light, but did not give a red light. And the way that the Israeli-US relationship works, for those who have been participating in it for many decades, is if Jerusalem does not hear a red light from the United States, they interpret that as a green light. And that's why you saw some confused messaging from the Trump administration immediately after the strikes began, with Secretary of State Rubio putting out a statement saying that this was a unilateral Israeli. I think that there was some degree of confusion along those lines. I think that what the Israelis heard was a green light. I don't know if that's what President Trump intended, but what President Trump did not do was give the clear red light for this. And that's why Iran believes that the United States is part of this. But the United States will be part of the defense of Israel. And Iran will see that and will see us as being their partner, just as we were in the Biden administration when we helped with air defenses for Israel when Iran struck them then. There have also been Iranian statements recently that have said that any nation, not just the United States, but any nation that plays a part in those air defenses would be considered a target. And many countries in the Gulf were cooperative in the air defenses previously. Two questions: Iranian decisions and Iranian capabilities. Their decisions, they seem to be escalatory thus far. But there's a number of steps yet for them to do. Their capabilities, they have a lot of capabilities left. They probably have about 2,000 ballistic missiles left by most estimates that people see. But a lot of their capabilities have been diminished. Their proxy networks have been diminished in some cases. Their command and control personnel and apparatuses have been diminished just recently. Israel has air dominance and can spend time loitering, looking for launchers. And they have also taken out some nuclear sites. So Israel has had some success, some very impressive military successes through overt and covert means. But Iran is a state. Iran has an army, and Iran still remains a very dangerous player with some real capabilities. Some things like their navies have, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Iran is a real nation with a real army and has real capabilities. They sent 200 ballistic missiles, 200 drones. Some of them got through and some of them hit. And I believe the latest numbers were 3 Israelis were killed as a result of this. When wars like this start, they tend to have sometimes a life of their own. And so we're at a real risk of escalation on both sides, some intended and some not intended. It's hard to believe that that none of the militias, every militia has a different relationship with Iran and a different degree of reporting to Iran and taking direction from Iran. And it's hard to believe that none of them will join an Iranian call to be involved in operations if Iran makes that decision. That said, they should be thinking very hard about their own interests as well. When Hezbollah made the decision at Iran's encouragement to get engaged in a war with Israel, for much of that campaign, Hezbollah believed that they were winning that war until suddenly they weren't. And now they are not destroyed, but they are at their lowest ebb of power that they've had in many decades. So if I was an Iranian proxy militia inside of Iraq, I would think very carefully about whether or not I would just blindly listen to orders. I hope so, but we don't know that yet. This is one of the many risks that is present today, and that is much larger today than it was yesterday. Will Iran call on the militias to be part in its war? Will they agree? What will they target? Will they target targets in Israel? Will they target targets in Iraq? Will the targets in Iraq be American targets inside of Iraq? These are all a series of questions that will be answered. My guess is that there'll be a variety of reactions. Some of them initially will not be interested in listening to Iran, but some of them will. And the question is what they hit and what that means for Iraq. If they hit American targets, that's the surest way for the United States to get into this war. That's something that most Iraqis should not want at all. Iraq should not be a battlefield for a war between Iran and Israel. And anybody in Iraq that wants to pull Iraq into that war is not an Iraqi nationalist, not looking in the best interests of Iraq. Absolutely. Anybody inside Iraq who is looking out for other countries' interests instead of their own interests is not doing a service to the Iraqi people. Right now, it seems like it will not take place tomorrow, but a careful reading of the Iranian sentiments suggests that they did not close the door to those talks happening sometime in the future. Again, if the leaders in Tehran were wise, they would be taking advantage of this opportunity because President Trump wants to have a deal. They're going to need to make some very hard decisions about the future of their